It begins not with a roar, but with a silence, a pocket of stillness in the heart of a continent that breathes with 1,000 different voices. Imagine the air, thick and warm, heavy with the scent of dust and crushed sage. Picture the darkness, not as an absence of light, but as a presence, a velvet blanket pricked by 1 billion diamond-sharp stars. And in that darkness, a man is listening. His name is Frederick Selous. He is a hunter, a naturalist, and tonight he is prey. Every rustle in the tall, dry grass is a potential sentence of death. Every snap of a twig could be the footfall of a lion, or the cautious approach of a warrior who sees him not as a man, but as a trespasser. This is not a story of conquest. It is a story of wandering, a chronicle written in sweat, in fear, and in the profound, humbling awe of a world that does not care if you live or die. This is the true account of a hunter's wanderings in Africa in the year 1881. Our story does not start here, in this tense darkness, but in the crisp, ordered world of England. Frederick Selous was not born to this. He was a gentleman's son, educated, expected to take his place in a society of drawing rooms and strict manners. But the maps on the wall whispered to him. The accounts of explorers like David Livingstone burned in his mind like a fever. So he turned his back on all of it. In 1871, at just 19 years of age, he stepped off a ship in Cape Town with a heavy rifle, a heart full of ambition, and a profound ignorance of what the continent truly had in store for him. His first lessons were brutal and immediate. The Africa of the late 19th century was a land of immense, untamed wilderness. It was a place where empires, British, Boer, Portuguese, scribbled their claims on maps, but where true power resided with the land itself and the people who understood its ancient rhythms. Selous learned from these people. He listened to the guttural advice of Boer frontiersmen, men with faces like tanned leather who could track a springbok over bare rock. He traded with, fought against, and sometimes earned the wary respect of the Matabele and Mashona peoples, whose kingdoms held sway over the vast territories north of the Limpopo River.
And he learned the language of the wild. It's a language written in the dirt, a broken spider web across a game trail, the precise 3-toed print of an ostrich, the deep splayed pad of an elephant, still moist at the bottom, the chilling, unmistakable pug marks of a lion, pressed deep into the earth as if to say, "I am heavy, I am here." Selous learned to read these signs like a scholar reads a book. His life depended on it. One of his earliest, most terrifying tutors was the lion. Not the majestic creature of heraldry, but the real lion, a calculating, muscular ghost of the savannah. He recounts one moonlit night, camped near the Maklotsi River. The fire had burned low. The oxen, tethered for the night, were restless, their lowing tense, fearful. Selous was wrapped in his blanket, his rifle just inches from his hand. Sleep would not come. It was that primal feeling, the sensation of being watched. Then, a sound. Not a roar, but a deep, guttural cough, so close it seemed to vibrate in his own chest. It was a sound that bypassed the brain and spoke directly to the spine, a relic of a time when we ourselves were not the hunters, but the hunted. He lay perfectly still, his fingers slowly curling around the cold stock of his rifle. He could see nothing beyond the dying embers of the fire, but he knew the lion was there, just beyond the ring of light, its eyes reflecting an intelligence that was both alien and utterly familiar. It was assessing the camp, the strength of the fire, the defensibility of the man. For an hour, the standoff continued. The coughing would come, then silence, then the faintest crunch of a paw on dry leaves. Selous knew a charge could come in a blinding, roaring rush. He'd heard stories from other hunters, men who'd had their companions dragged from their tents, the screams swallowed by the African night. Finally, as the first hint of gray touched the eastern sky, the presence lifted. The feeling of being watched faded. The lion had moved on, a king granting a temporary reprieve. Selous didn't sleep that night. He just stared into the darkness, understanding, for the first time, the true price of admission to this land.
But the lions were only one of the terrors. There were the buffalo, dark, brooding creatures that would seemingly hold a grudge, circling back to ambush a hunter who had wounded them. He describes one colossal old bull, its horns blunted and scarred from countless battles that he had shot and thought dead. As he approached, the beast, with a final furious surge of life, lunged to its feet, its horns missing Selous by inches before it finally collapsed. The smell of its hot, bloody breath, the sheer brute force will to live even in the face of death, stayed with him for years. And then there were the elephants. To walk in the country of the elephants was to walk in a land of giants. Selous wasn't just a trophy hunter, he was collecting specimens for museums, and ivory was the currency that funded his wanderings. But to look into the wise, ancient eye of a full-grown bull elephant was to feel a profound sense of insignificance. He writes of tracking a herd for days, moving through forests they had shaped, following paths they had carved over centuries. The silence of these hunts was eerie. You didn't just listen with your ears, you listened with your skin. The faint rumble of a stomach, a vibration felt through the soles of your feet. The snap of a branch 100 yards away. The sudden, chilling trumpet of alarm that would shatter the stillness and send the whole herd crashing through the timber like a living earthquake. One hunt nearly ended him. He had tracked a large bull into a dense patch of mopane forest. The air was still and hot. The bull knew it was being followed. It was a game of chess, played with lives. Selous finally got a clear shot and fired. The elephant bellowed, a sound of pure rage and pain, and vanished into the thicket. Selous followed the blood spoor, a bright crimson trail on the dry leaves. He pushed through a wall of thorny brush, and there it was. Not fleeing, not dying, waiting for him. The elephant had circled back, its ears flared, its trunk coiled, its one good eye fixed on him with an intelligence that was purely murderous. It charged. There was no time to think, only to act. Selous fired his second barrel, the bullet striking bone but not stopping the mountain of muscle and rage. He scrabbled behind the nearest tree, a slender thing that shuddered as the elephant slammed into it, its trunk snaking around, trying to pull him out. The smell was overwhelming, dust, vegetation, and the coppery tang of blood. He managed to reload, his hand shaking, and fired again, point blank into the beast's head. It shuddered, let out a long, sighing breath, and collapsed at his feet. In the sudden silence, all Selous could hear was the pounding of his own heart. He sat there, leaning against the tree for a long time, not in triumph, but in a state of exhausted, trembling awe. He had won, but it felt less like a victory, more like a survival.
The land itself was a character in the story, and it was not always a hospitable one. He traversed the thirst lands of the Kalahari, a sun-scorched hell where water was a memory and the horizon shimmered in a heat haze. He describes the desperation of finding a known waterhole, only to discover it had been churned into a foul, muddy wallow by elephants, the water undrinkable. He writes of the strange, silent beauty of the Makati Pans, a vast, blinding white expanse of salt where nothing lived, and the skeletons of long dead animals lay bleaching in the sun, pointing the way for no one. And then there were the people, the true rulers of this interior world. His most complex relationship was with the Matabele, the fierce, disciplined warrior nation forged by the great king Mzilikazi and now ruled by his son Lobengula. To travel in Matabele land was to walk a razor's edge. Lobengula's capital, Bulawayo, was not a city of stone, but a vast kraal, a sprawling complex of mud huts and cattle pens that pulsed with the power of thousands. Selous approached it with caution. He had to present himself to the king. to ask for permission to hunt in his domain. The audience with Lobengula was a piece of high-stakes theater. The king was a massive man, immense in girth and presence, seated on a wooden stool, surrounded by his indunas, his advisors, and his regiments of warriors, the Impi. These men were magnificent and terrifying, adorned with oxtail leggings and headdresses of black ostrich feathers, their bodies glistening with oil. They held their tall, cowhide shields and broad-bladed stabbing spears, the ikwa, with a casual, deadly grace. The air was thick with the smell of wood smoke, beer, and sweat. Lobengula was no fool. He was a politician, trapped between the ancient ways of his people and the relentless, encroaching pressure of the white men from the south. He knew that every hunter like Selous was a scout, a forerunner for something much larger, much more permanent. He questioned Selous intently, his eyes missing nothing. How many rifles? How much powder? Where exactly did he intend to hunt? A wrong answer, a hint of deception, and Selous and his party could be wiped out, their bodies left for the vultures, and no one in Cape Town would ever know what happened. Selous, through a combination of honesty, flattery, and the timely gift of a fine rifle, secured his permission, but it was a fragile peace. He was constantly watched. He witnessed the raw power of the Matabele state firsthand. Once he saw the return of a victorious Impi from a raid against a neighboring tribe. It was not a glorious parade, but a grim, terrifying spectacle. The warriors chanted a deep, rhythmic war song that seemed to shake the earth, and they carried with them trophies that were not animal. It was a stark reminder that the horrors of this land were not solely the domain of the animal kingdom. Humanity had its own monsters. He also spent time with the Mashona, a more agricultural people who lived in the hills and often found themselves under the heel of the Matabele. From them he learned a different kind of Africa. They showed him cave paintings, ancient depictions of eland and hunters, spirits and gods drawn in ochre on stone. They spoke of the Mondoro, the tribal spirits, and the Ingas, the witch doctors who could commune with them. He listened to their stories of trickster hares and malevolent river spirits, a whole cosmology woven into the landscape. In their villages, he tasted their thick, sour beer and shared meals of roasted maize and stewed game, understanding that this land was not a wilderness to them, but a home filled with memory, tradition, and meaning. The wanderings were not without moments of breathtaking beauty that existed alongside the terror. He describes coming upon a hidden valley, a secret world filled with a profusion of wildflowers, with clear, cold water bubbling from a spring, a place so peaceful it felt like a sanctuary. He writes of the incredible migrations of springbok and the Kalahari, hundreds of thousands of the graceful antelope moving as a single, flowing entity across the plains, a river of life. He marveled at the sheer biodiversity, the tiny jewel-like sunbirds, the comical warthogs, the towering giraffes that moved like slow-motion dreams through the acacia trees. But the darkness was never far away. Disease was a constant silent companion. The malaria that racked his body with fever and chills, leaving him shivering under a blanket in the midday heat. The horse sickness that could wipe out his entire transport in a matter of days, stranding him hundreds of miles from civilization. And the knowledge that if he suffered a serious injury, a broken leg, a deep gash that turned septic, his chances of survival were almost zero. His medicine chest contained little more than quinine, laudanum, and Epsom salts. Surgery was something you did yourself, with a knife, a needle, and a bottle of brandy for courage. One of the most poignant and horrifying episodes in his book is his encounter with the aftermath of a slave raid. While traveling near the fringes of Portuguese territory, he came across a village, or what was left of it. The huts were burned to the ground, the ashes still warm. The silence was absolute. No children laughing, no women pounding grain, just the buzzing of flies. And then he saw them, the bodies. The old men, the ones of no value to the slavers, left where they fell, their spears still in their hands. It was a scene of utter, meaningless destruction. The slave trade, that great bleeding wound of Africa, was not an abstract concept here. It was the smell of death on the wind. It was the knowledge that while he was hunting animals, other men were hunting human beings. It cast a long, dark shadow over his own pursuits, forcing him to confront the brutal realities of the continent beyond the thrill of the chase. As the years of wandering piled up, a change began to creep into Selous's accounts. The boyish enthusiasm for the hunt begins to mature into something more profound. The collector of specimens becomes a keen observer, a naturalist in the truest sense. He meticulously records the habits of the animals he once only sought to kill. He notes with concern the shrinking herds, the areas where elephant were once plentiful, now hunted out. He was witnessing the beginning of the end, the first tremors of the change that he himself was a part of. The map was closing. The blank spaces were being filled in. The world he loved, a world of immense, silent spaces and limitless game, was passing away, and he knew it. His wanderings were a bridge between two eras. He was there in the last golden age of the great African safari, when a man with a rifle and enough courage could walk into the unknown. But he was also there at the dawn of the colonial scramble, the coming of the railways, the telegraph wires, and the permanent settlements that would forever alter the ancient rhythms he had come to know. The hunter was becoming a relic in his own lifetime. The story ends as it began, not with a conclusion, but with a departure. Selous, after years in the interior, packs his specimens, his journals filled with meticulous notes and sketches, and turns his face towards the south, towards what men call civilization. He leaves behind the dust, the heat, the terror, and the sublime beauty. He leaves behind the lions that coughed in the night and the elephants that shook the earth, but he carries it all with him. In the lines on his face, in the set of his shoulders, in the quiet look in his eyes that had seen things other men could only dream of or have nightmares about. He walked in Africa when it was still a world of shadows and giants, and he left behind a record, a hunter's wandering, a testament to the last days of the great, dark, and magnificent wilderness.